Justin Edwards, Kentucky guard slash wing. He can kind of play a little forward as well, but he is the player we're doing today. Scouting report edition. We have a bunch of categories for Justin Edwards. We'll talk through what we think he will look like in the NBA. But first, give me just a general overview. What do you believe about Justin Edwards, the basketball player?
He's a he's a very good basketball player in stretches. And then he kind of goes away in stretches. He came into Kentucky last season as one of the more high-rated freshmen in the country, one of the more high-rated freshmen on the Kentucky team. Was pretty quickly overshadowed by Reed Shepard and Rob Dillingham and Antonio Reeves and everybody else in that Kentucky roster. So he kind of had to become a role player, and he did that pretty well. He was able to use his athleticism to do a little bit defensively. He was great in transition. Towards the end of the season, he had some games where the shooting came around and he became like oh yeah, that's why you were a 5-star recruit kind of deal. But now he comes into the league and you wonder if he's just a victim of circumstance at Kentucky and there is still some of that 5-star potential in there, or if he got lost in the shuffle for a reason and he is just a athletic raw piece to be seen what's left in there. So there's certainly some upside, but I think there's a lot of question marks with his game just because of the varying kind of importance he had at Kentucky.
Mm, you have me. You have me intrigued. I'm very curious where you're going to go with the rest of the scouting report now, Brian. I'm like, do you like him? Do you not like him? This is mysterious. Yeah, to me, Edwards got a lot of flack. He got a lot of flack for like being the guy that wasn't good enough on the Kentucky team, and I think there were multiple guys that weren't good enough. Like to me, DJ Wagner arguably was a bigger problem than Justin Edwards, and he had some wow moments at the end of the year, Edwards, that is, where
Mm-hmm.
it was like, oh, maybe he's better than we've given him credit for. But it's hard to evaluate anyone from the Kentucky team that isn't Dillingham or Shepard because those guys just overshadowed everything else that was going on with that team so much that I don't
Right.
know. I am optimistic that maybe there's a new chapter for Justin Edwards as he enters the NBA. Give me one word to describe Justin Edwards.
Unknown, largely. And the Kentucky situation had a lot to do with that because he did come around towards the end of the season. And I think he has the ability or had the ability in college to handle more of an offensive role and handle more of a scoring role. And that maybe would have played into his skill set better and elevated his draft stock more. But like we talked about, he was buried on the pecking order once Rob Dillingham and Reed Shepard became who they became. And Tony Reeves was still going to get his shots. DJ Wagner's got the ball in his hands. He's got a certain um, shot hunting nature about him as well, where he was going to get his. Like I think there's just a lot of unknown because I think we know less about Justin Edwards' game now than we did before the season at Kentucky.
Interesting. That's a really interesting way to put it. Yeah. Okay. I went forgotten because
Yep.
I think people just forgot about him. Like it's like he's
Yeah.
not good enough. He's not Reed Shepard. He's not Rob Dillingham. Let's just move on. We'll see if that remains the same as he gets to an NBA team. Is he more likely to hit his floor or his ceiling in the NBA?
I think he's more likely to hit his ceiling. I think there's a very good player in there. And the ceiling may be starter, ceiling may be couple time all-star. He's got the athleticism to do that. If his shooting becomes more consistent, then he certainly has the ability to do that. I'm interested to see him in a expanded role, maybe as a somebody off the bench who can carry more of that offensive freedom than he was given at Kentucky, more responsibility. I think he can hit his ceiling. I think his floor is like out of the league pretty quickly. I think he's too skilled to be out of the league that quickly.
I completely agree. I'm going ceiling. And I think, yeah, I think there's going to be a rewriting of his career here. I'm very excited about this. I think he's going to find a way to show something that he was not showing at Kentucky. Also, like the whole like bet on Kentucky guards thing, I think that should apply to Justin Edwards. Like we're just kind of
Yeah.
acting like it doesn't, but like I don't know. If you find yourself like in the 20s or the 30s of this draft, and Justin Edwards is sitting right there, like there's not a lot other guys to like to take a shot on. Like he is a Kentucky guard. Kentucky guards often
Yeah.
work out. What's the best team fit for Justin Edwards?
The Nuggets late in the first round. I think I'd love to see the Denver Nuggets take him and develop him. We've seen them gamble on athleticism and upside, high school pedigree guys before. Peyton Watts from UCLA was the most recent one, where he's somebody who had a lot of tools, athleticism, but was kind of like Justin Edwards, buried in the pecking order, and he is now turned into a solid rotation piece with the Nuggets. Christian Brown, Kansas. Now, like he had a pretty clear defined role, but they're able to turn him into a consistent bench piece. They also need to find bench pieces and impact players, I think, through the draft because of what they're paying their starting lineup. Edwards to me is worth a gamble there, and I think it's a good fit for both a developmental standpoint and an opportunity standpoint.
Mm, I don't mind that whatsoever. I went New York Knicks. I just envision a spot where he slides in next to Brunson and maybe next to Hart. And I don't know, I maybe DiVincenzo, I guess, as well. But like if those guys can do it, these role players who showed talent in college but didn't always put it all together can like play off the superstar and become better versions of themselves. That's what I want Justin Edwards to do. I want him to be around winners. I want him to have a very simple job, and I think the Knicks would allow him to do that. What do his peak year stats look like? His best season in the NBA, what's it look like?
14 points, 5 boards, and 39% from three, where he is a solid contributor off the bench. Maybe he's a part time starter. Maybe he's a full time starter, but more of a third, fourth, fifth option. Um, I think that's most likely where his peak ends up.
I went for 13 points a game, 5 rebounds, just like good rotational player. It's about it. Nothing
Yep.
great, nothing you're gonna like make the ESPN highlights with, but just he's a good fourth, fifth option guy for a couple of seasons. In 5 years, where is he? He could be all NBA, all star, starter, bench, G League, overseas, or podcaster.
I think it's bench. I think he's a bench guy. I think he's a contributor off the bench. He could start maybe for one of the bottom feeders in the league by this point. I think the starting role probably comes later in his career, maybe around like year 8, 6, like 7, 8 or so. That feels about right to me. But I think he's more of a bench guy 5 years in.
I went starter. I don't know how,
Okay.
but I think he's gonna like stumble his way. Like there's just a lot of guys I watch starting on the playoff teams right now as fifth options that I think Justin Edwards could be more talented than. So
Yeah.
it's all dependent on landing spot, but I think he does enough. He offers enough defensively. He's solid enough in various ways offensively that I think I see him as a fifth option starter guy on a good team. Superlative time. Justin Edwards is the most likely player in this draft class to what?
Make us question John Calipari's rotation decisions.
I mean, you're going to do that no matter what. You've been doing that for months. So
Yes. And Reed Shepard, Dillingham are going to do that as well because they did not start for Kentucky and are both likely to go top 10 in this draft. But got starter level minutes and closed games. Justin Edwards was largely in and out of the lineup late in games, in and out of the starting lineup. Like his minutes and playing time was inconsistent. I think if he hits in the league and becomes a consistent contributor, we're going to look back at this past year's Kentucky team and really wonder like what the hell was John Calipari doing? And now there's a long line of Kentucky guards who were okay at Kentucky and then became much better NBA players than they were college players. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander being one of them, Emmanuel Quickly being one of them. You can even go back to like Karl Anthony Towns, Devin Booker, certainly. Like there's a list there that I don't know if Justin Edwards is going to join at that level, but I do think there's a scenario where his NBA career far exceeds his college production.
yeah, that's what I'm hopeful happens. I said Justin Edwards is the most likely to be the quote unquote Kentucky guard that we look back on from this class and say that everyone overlooked. Even like more than I guess I don't think Shepard or Dillingham are going to be overlooked, but I think Justin Edwards will be the Kentucky guard from this class. Define that however you want to. That's what I'm
Okay.
going with. I really believe it. All right. We're doing a bunch of these. We're doing the top 75 players in the draft on our big board. We're doing scouting reports and player comparison videos for. Go watch them on the channel. The NBA draft is coming up, and I've got something awesome for you. We are partnering with the people at NBA 2K Lab. NBA 2K is the best video game on earth. The people at 2K Lab are making some awesome stuff to make that game even more fun, and they just launched their 2024 NBA Draft Simulator, where you can find the official Sleepers Media big board. We ranked our top 75 players in this draft class. Me, Carter, Brian Ralph, Riley Davis. We did it together, and it is featured on the 2K Lab NBA Draft Simulator. You can take control of any team in the draft, play GM with just one click, and see our entire rankings before these videos even come out. Check out the link in the description of this video to try out the draft sim for yourself, and you can find more mini games at nba2klab.com/NBA-mini-games.